Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TLMI printTHINK webinar series. Today we are focusing on, this is the first in a series on digital technologies. This is what are they, where, why, and where they will be used. And we will have Taylor Buckthorpe and Sean Marcy bringing us to the presentation to us today. And I will turn it over to you guys.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, just to start off, my name is Sean Marcy, basically 30 plus years in digital package printing. Started out in the barcode industry, created a few companies back in the pioneer Wild West days, mostly around inkjet technologies and OEM inkjet print engines. And today I do, for the last few years, do consulting for print service providers and also brand owners in transitioning to digital transformation and workflows.
Cool. And my name's Taylor Buckthorpe. I've been in the print industry now for 15 years. I actually worked for Sean when I first started in the industry, probably about 10 or 12 years ago. I've been working with a company called Colordyne on both the technology side of their business and the sales of their inkjet equipment. So I have a lot of inkjet knowledge and expertise over the last kind of 12, 15 years, helping label and packaging converters implement inkjet into their production and into the applications they're running every day.
Thanks, guys. I'm Rick Mix. I'm with Fujifilm America. I am the sales manager for packaging, and I'll be your moderator today. Want to let everybody know that we will answer the questions through the pop-up on the site, and we'll take care of those at the end of the session. Also, let you know that the webinar is recorded and will be posted to the TLMI website probably by end of the day tomorrow, early on Thursday. And I think with that, we will turn it over to Taylor. Sean is first, sorry.
No, I think I'm actually taking it.
Taylor first. Okay, there we go.
So really, Sean and I wanted to kind of start pretty high level and then boil it down into more of the specifics between different types of digital technology. So the first big question is really what is or what are digital technologies? Really the big difference is you have digital technology and you have analog technology. Digital would be things like inkjet and toner mainly, and then in the analog space you're looking at litho, flexo, gravure, and letterpress. And really where digital comes into play is eliminating the plates or the complex setups that come with analog printing equipment, and really the hopes there is to save time and material waste in your production costs. The inkjet space is very, very crowded, or I should really say the digital space is very crowded. There's lots of OEMs and solutions providers that cover a broad range of markets, and that landscape can tend to look like something like this. You know, in the label space, there's numerous OEMs who are doing, you know, marking just with monochrome colors. You have companies that are doing 4-color process, extended gamut solutions for labels. That blends into flexible packaging. You know, you're seeing the rise of folding carton as well. And then, you know, corrugated is another big market for inkjet and digital technologies, as well as, you know, a lot of new direct-to-shape type of applications. So despite the wide number of OEMs, it's really where are these technologies being used? And from a very high level, digital technology has always been used for high mix, low volume applications, or what a lot of people refer to as short run production. And we see that across really any of the main printing vertical markets like labels, packaging, commercial print, corrugated. So when you look at those markets, you know, pretty much anything in those buckets, digital is being used to print today. Again, whether that's inkjet or toner, in all of these key markets, there is some use of inkjet. In some, it's dominant players. In others, it's the rising hope, or where a lot of growth potential is yet to be seen. And really the driving force behind that, when we look at why companies are really migrating to digital so quickly is the increase in SKUs, brand preference and what we're seeing on the shelf. That all goes upstream to label and packaging converters and people in the print industry. So customers want more variety on shelf. That increases the number of SKUs. Brand owners are putting in flavor varieties, regional marketing efforts. And then no one wants to carry inventory in 2023. There's a cost to doing so, and there's a high waste risk when you carry lots of inventory of pre-printed labels. So a lot of brands are continuing to push to just-in-time inventory when they can, and that leads converters to faster setup times and needs for more productivity in the plant. And there's always more and more competition. You're seeing that with private label brands, where a large brand will, instead of trying to dominate the market under one brand, they'll release numerous sub-brands just with different label varieties and compete on the same brand shelf. So all of that really pushes the need for digital printing in label and converting facilities or print commercial printing shops. And really what we're looking for is, less setup time, less changeover time, and more throughput in that installation. So when you look at the two main technologies used, you have toner. Sean's going to get into the different types of toner technology there. I'll break down the different types of inkjet, but really what we see there are aqueous chemistries or water-based, and then more of your UV inkjet technology, which uses photo initiators. And with all technology, there's no one solution that does everything. So it's really about understanding your business and understanding what technology can do and making sure you make the right choices when you're looking at investing in digital printing. Toner, there's a couple key suppliers that really dominate that market. Where, as I mentioned before, inkjet is fairly crowded. There's lots of suppliers. And in both categories, you have everything from what would be called benchtop, industrial class equipment, which is your smaller benchtop systems, all the way up to your production class systems, which are, the high-end, high-speed, high-throughput type devices. So I'll touch on inkjet real quick, and then I'm going to kick it over to Sean. A good way to look at inkjet technology is really kind of in these three main buckets if you're thinking about labels and packaging or commercial printing. Typically what I see in the label converter space, you have a lot of UV inkjet being used. A big reason for that is there's a really wide material range for that technology. It's a very easy technology to use and work with if you want to introduce primers or corona treatment to expand the printable substrate range. And you have, high residual solids in that ink. So everything you jet down to the page gets cured and anchored to the surface. So it allows you to do a lot of unique hybrid printing applications as well. It's great outdoors, great UV protection, great water fastness and durability as well. So anyone in the durable label space, this tends to be a really strong technology for that. Whereas you kind of counter over to the water-based, which is typically slightly less durable, but it starts opening up more of the food safe, consumer safe type of applications or pharmaceutical applications where you don't want to have the photo initiators and monomers that are in UV LED inks in your ink sets, because ultimately we don't want those getting into those consumer products. With the water-based technology, like I said, less EHS concerns, but typically there on some of that technology, you are seeing higher resolution, but that's starting to become more equally managed as mechanical piezo print heads and UV inks are putting smaller nozzles and smaller drops down to the page. So if you were to look at those two technologies kind of side by side, thermal piezo, the easiest way to think of it is kind of like an incandescent light bulb. You add electricity to that filament, you get light. In these nozzles, there's a small thermal element. When we tell that nozzle to fire, it heats up and flash boils the droplet of ink out of that nozzle. Whereas on the mechanical piezo side, which is more commonly used for UV inkjet printing, we actually have a piezo mechanical device that is articulating and pushing the ink out of the nozzle. On the right hand of the screen there, you can see kind of the rough components of what inkjet really is. Ultimately, you have a bulk supply of ink. You have an ink delivery module that's treating the ink and getting it ready for the printhead. And then you have the printhead, which is delivering the dots down to the page. So with inkjet, there's not a lot of moving components. It's a pretty simple printing architecture. And I think that's why you see a lot of suppliers in the market, is because everyone can kind of build this engine, and it's a lot about all the components and the inner workings and the automation that really drives who you should look at as a supplier. And ultimately with inkjet, we are jetting droplets, anywhere from 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter away from the material, and those are traveling down to the page to leave, an image that ultimately, whether that's CMYK, extended color, white, or you can ultimately look even at special colors as well with inkjet technology. A big trend of where we're seeing inkjet used is in hybrid printing. So this is actually a live example from one of my customers. They had a very challenging flexo job where they had multiple versions, and you're looking at 4 or 5 plate changes per version. So what they did is they shifted the digital to pick up what would be the 4 color process plate changes. So they eliminated all of those plate changes for every single version by producing those digitally. And then in a single pass, they would lay down spot colors with flexo, like metallic inks or heavy coverage areas, to help reduce the total digital printing cost. So really, digital was used for short run, 10 years ago, and that was the banner message of where people are using digital. Now we're trying to bridge the gap between long run analog and short run, and a lot of that is being accomplished with hybrid printing. And you can kind of see the numbers behind this example just in rough setup time, which is different for every shop, but drastic amount of time saved here in your press setup. So the goal here is shave hours out of your business every day through the implementation of digital printing, and fill that added capacity up with very profitable work. Again, that could be digital or more analog work for your business. I'm going to stop talking and let Sean get into more of the toner side. So with that, everyone, this is Sean Marsky again, and he'll be walking us through the toner technologies.
All right, thank you, Taylor. Welcome, everyone. So just like Taylor did a deep dive on the basic overview of inkjet, we'll handle the toner-based side. So next slide, please. This is a very crude, simplistic example of how toner transfer technology works. There's a lot of different variations of the type of laser. It used to be called laser printing, then LED. Technology came in, and there's different light wave frequencies and all of that, but the process is still the same. The toner, let's go back, Taylor. Yeah. The toner is laid down onto a blanket, then onto a transfer roller, and then it is transferred onto the substrate, and then the substrate is heated and fused in a heat roller or some other type of heating process. So there's a lot of direct connection or contact with the substrate. Main difference, toner-based is a direct to substrate transfer, whereas inkjet is obviously jetted or sprayed down onto the substrate. Next. In the world of toner, there's the old technology, the current technology, and the emerging technology. So in the beginning, every toner was a dry toner. In essence, it was ground down. The pigments were ground into fine granules, around a 5 micron dot size. In essence, you're talking about 600 DPI maximum with 5 micron. Today, the vast majority of current packaging related digital toner printers or presses use what are called generally electro inks. They are a mixture of a paste and an oil, no longer a dry toner. With this process, you get down to a 1 micron 5x improvement versus dry toner. Now you're in the 1200 DPI range effectively with that size. And then the emerging side is nano ink toner technology. With this, you're getting down, this uses water instead of an oil paste. And the particles are so fine, the water evaporates extremely quickly. And you're in the 500 nanometer dot size, which in essence is getting you gravure type technology, 2400 DPI, and an incredible amount of future gamut when you get into different colors of the nano ink. But that's just emerging, and we'll see a lot more of this over the coming years. But for today, there are pretty much everything's on electro ink. I would say the two main differences between inkjet and toner is toner more effectively mimics litho offset type of printing, whereas inkjet would be more of a mimic of flexography. Toner produces, let's see, why don't we get to the next slide? So you can see on the left here, that is your typical offset litho dot pattern once it is put down onto the substrate. In the upper right, this would be the older dry toner technology. These are still used in your home office kind of laser printers, but you can see the dots compared to the litho are a little, they're fuzzy around the edges, they're uneven, which in the commercial printing and professional printing world would not yield a desired level of print quality. Whereas the lower right, you can see the electro ink toner. It is far closer to the typical dot patterns, Rosetta patterns you would see with litho offset. So this is very desirable for a lot of printing companies where they're used to working, and when they show, if they're doing long runs with litho, and then they want to do makeup work or ancillary work, they can add toner based, which doesn't present itself to the end user, the brand owner, as a major quality difference. Next, please. The biggest development in today's current offerings for digital presses are the expansion of color gamut, which, as many of you are familiar with, you typically have 12 mother colors in the flexo world or the liquid ink world. You mix those and you can create your various Pantone shades and that type of thing. So here today we're seeing the expansion. This is HP's newest offering where you basically have your 12 mother colors in liquid toner or electro toner, which in essence will match quite a few Pantones and get you the broadest expansion capability to reach whatever your customers are looking for. Very pricey though. Next, please. In essence, to summarize the benefits, we'll look at the benefits and then the challenges in toner versus potentially inkjet or others. You get consistently a very accurate and consistent dot placement onto the substrate. And there are literally thousands of substrates available today for most professional grade toner presses. They're not subject, because they're directly transferred onto the substrate via direct contact. You can go very fast, and you're not upsetting the dots being laid on the substrate with air currents flowing. You know, the web is moving rapidly. You have air currents crossing that, and because you're using a laser or an LED array. It's a pretty consistent over time. You don't see quality starting to degrade rapidly with potentially nozzle outs or dot misplacements, which change print quality. The images in general, because it's a fused toner, they're polymer pigments mixed with different polymers. Once it's fused, it anchors pretty well. It's water fast and substantially light fast as well. Typically, there's no inline drying required except for certain substrates. You don't require the use of specialized coatings for substrates like films or things like that, water receptive. You don't need that. You can achieve print quality. However, there are treatments that are required. Corona treating, that's part and parcel with toner. A lot of substrates you can purchase from media suppliers will be Corona treated for toner presses. However, you typically will have to refresh the Corona charge on a machine. There are options on presses that will do the Corona treating as it's feeding into the press. And when you get into a broader set of film type products, whether polypropylene, polyethylene, polystyrenes, polyamides, these types of things, you need to maintain the surface energy, and you're going to have to probably put a primer down on that substrate to guarantee and improve maximum adhesion. You don't want that toner flaking off before it's coated or laminated or UV varnished. The challenges side, this is a double-edged sword. It's called a click charge. Typically, the way the major suppliers of toner presses, whereas in inkjet, you're in essence paying for every drop that you put down. So if you drop, you only pay, you get an ink supply, and low coverage costs less. High coverage labels or printed packaging costs more. With a click charge, you're pretty much paying the same per impression. And so low coverage will still cost the same as high coverage. However, that also equalizes the cost and makes it very quick to do quote estimating and consistency there. Typically, it challenges toner-based presses tend to be substantially higher in capital cost with the accessories and also the base than inkjet. However, they're pretty high production, high capacity these days. The Corona treating and primer applications, that will be a process you'll have to do ahead of printing. So it's not just a pull media from inventory and drop it on the press. So those types of things have to be looked at. Electroing toners, they typically will be fused with a semi-gloss satin finish. The thinner or the smaller the component, which electro-inks are today, they will reflect if you have a gloss surface on the substrate. Because the toner is now so thin, it allows that gloss reflectivity to shine through the toner. However, it's just the opposite now. If you want a true matte on a plain craft paper or something, you don't want a semi-gloss look, that's going to be a little challenging. So nothing fits every application perfectly. Next. So to give you an example of a click charge, as I was describing earlier, two print impressions here. On the left, you're at 45% ink laydown given the square inches or on the sheet or the web. On the other side, you're at 21%, so less than half ink usage on the right side as the left. With a click charge, these would basically cost the same. All right. Whereas with inkjet, you're going to have a lower cost on the right side than you would on the left. This is just in general. Different suppliers will have different algorithms for their click charges based on the color and what you're using. And all machines, whether inkjet or toner, will do a pre-flight on your artwork, and it'll tell you exactly the breakdown and dot patterns and what it's going to cost based on what it is. Next. Toner pretty much has expanded. It is at the top of its S curve in terms of technology, meaning there's really nowhere. It's difficult to improve the technology much other than make the toner lighter, thinner, smaller particles such as nano inks that I talked about earlier. So the only place for toner presses to go today is in productivity. So they're getting wider and they're getting faster. So you're really seeing some of the higher end toner-based presses able to do B size, B1, B2 size prints at pretty rapid speeds. So you're approaching the productivity of good offset litho presses for that type of work. However, everything has to be evaluated against the print volume versus your productivity. So at some point, obviously, there's always a boundary where analog printing, such as litho or offset, will be much more cost effective, depending on the print job and the volume. The unique thing is, though, with modern toner presses with this productivity, if you have 20 jobs from 20 different customers or multiple SKUs, you can pretty much gang all of those orders, turn on the press, it will flag and separate each job with a barcode or a marker for an operator to separate the prints. But once you turn it on, you can pretty much run an entire master roll if you've got enough to fill that in a single run where everything is separated. So there's all of those factors go into the cost benefit, when you're looking at toner versus analog. I've seen over the past 5 years, the definition of short run is getting bigger or longer all the time. So that's a very short run is ambiguous and growing more ambiguous by the year. Corrugated is the latest entry for toner. It remains to be seen if the corrugated market is really going to adopt toner based. I think, in my opinion, inkjet is more suitable for corrugated printing at the kind of volumes and speeds and throughput you need. Toner also has some issues with some of the corrugated flutes and surfaces. Corona treating can be a little bit difficult at times. But in terms of flexibles, labels, sheets, commercial printing, there really is an incredibly large array and availability of substrates available. And now that print quality, you're getting up 6-color, hexachrome, 7, 9, 12. It's really a broad-based technology that is creeping more and more into the analog world.
Yeah, I think to kind of piggyback off of Sean's kind of wrap-up slide on toner, Sean kind of mentioned is like, where's the technology going? As inkjet advances, I think you're seeing it being used in more unique end-use markets. And I think a lot of that has to do with the simplicity of the printing architecture. You have a print head, an ink delivery, and an IDM. So we're seeing things here at Color Day where you have inkjet being put into packaging lines, into inserting lines, lots of different applications, whether that's even for necessarily printing of color or printing of barcodes, imagery. There's all sorts of stuff being developed in, printable science technologies, things like that. You have direct to shape, which is another big market, which is being done with inkjet heads because you can articulate an uneven surface underneath the print head. You have robotic arms with print heads attached to them doing things like that. So there's lots of unique markets where I think inkjet can fit into. Whereas toner has that big play in the traditional print markets. But I think each have their pros and cons. With hopefully Sean and I did a good job of painting the market for you. But the big thing ultimately is you know your business best. Open up that information to any suppliers you're talking to, really flip every stone over and make sure you're looking at trialing applications, understanding the substrate range you can print on, and ultimately what it costs to print, because that's how your business makes money. With that, I think Sean and I have a wrap-up slide. Oops, let me get us there here. But we thank you all for joining us. I think we're going to kick it over to questions for the group. So if anyone did submit any.
Yeah, we're looking for anybody that's going to submit questions. We want to thank Sean and Taylor for putting the presentations together today. The TLMI Technical Committee is the organizer of the printTHINK webinars, but it's really the members that do all the work. So we do want to thank you guys both for all the information there. In addition to contact emails for both these gentlemen, you can always refer to office@tlmi.com. So that's a great way to give both feedback, and also you can potentially gain or supply us with other topics in the future. As I said during the introduction, this is the first in a series with some focus on digital technologies. We will be looking next month at where the technology fit, and then in March more on color management in Flexo to digital. And so those are the other topics that we'll be looking at in the future. So again, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We can hang on here if anybody has any questions that they'd like to provide us with, and we'll let these guys answer. And again, their emails are there if you want to reach out directly following the webinar today. Otherwise, we want to thank everybody and appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I got that email right on there for you, Sean, correct?
It's right. Yep.
Okay.
That's a mouthful.
What was the total number of attendees or live while we're waiting for questions if anyone has one?
39.
Cool.
And
I just got messaged by my team, you're still live. I was like, I know I'm still live. I'm hoping people ask questions.
staying live unless anybody has questions. I don't want to cut them off. Just don't say anything bad about anybody.
Never would.
Well, I guess that's I guess that'll be it. So appreciate you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, and we'll keep provide us with a review.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.